All right. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? Everyone's going to IKEA after this. That's like the third time I've been asked that today because I was at DPW, then I was over at Water, and now here. I think everyone said the same thing to me. Um, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Matt Ackerman from Cities and Villages Mutual Insurance Company. I am your designated loss control specialist. So I've been with CVMIC for over 2.5 years now. I've been with the city of Oak Creek for that entire time. Some of you may know this. I actually did work for the city for 5 years back when I was in high school and college. So obviously very, very familiar with the area. I'll save you the rest of my background, but I'm glad to be back, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's program. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pass around a training roster. If I could have everyone please print your name, department, and signature. This is for my records as well as yours to show that you attended today's program. As well as I'm going to pass around the safe lifting checklist. We're going to do a little activity today, so I will need at least one volunteer, and then we will move on with today's program. So for those of you who have not done training with me in the past, I like to keep it very informal. Try to have a little bit of fun today, so it makes it a little more interesting if I have some feedback and people talk to me, rather than me sitting up here for about an hour just boring you to death. So a little conversation makes it a little bit more fun for myself. So with that being said, our first topic today is safe lifting and back safety. Now, with both topics today, everything I tell you is going to seem very, very, very elementary. We all know these things. We know how to do them properly. We know how to look for these hazards. We know that extension cords are not good going across walkways. It's common sense stuff, but you're going to see exactly why it is a huge issue and why we have a problem with it throughout our 48 members throughout Wisconsin that we have. So we'll talk about that a little bit today. But if you have questions, comments, concerns, raise your hand, shout it out. I'm pretty easy going. Like I said, I'd like to try to have a little bit of fun. So, are there any questions before I get going? All right, starting out with a pretty lively crowd. I like it. I like it. So, what our learning objectives for today are for at least the first program? We're going to go over some statistics. Specifically for the city of Oak Creek, we're going to look at injuries over the last 5 years and see where those stand. Talk about your back, the forces actually involved. We're going to do a proper lifting activity. So again, I will need at least one volunteer. I'll take that cell phone until after class is over. No, just kidding. Talk about maintaining a healthy back. And lastly, we're just going to do a quick review. So each program today will be about 30 minutes. We'll probably get you out of here a little bit early if all goes as planned. So some simple statistics. Back injuries are one of the most common and costly workplace injuries that we see. Back injuries account for 1 out of every 5 injuries in the workplace. About half of all working Americans admit to having back pain each year, and back pain is one of the most common reasons for miswork. So has anyone in here ever experienced back pain? All right, so about 75. How about on a daily basis? Back pain. So a few of us. So as you can see, it's extremely common, right? Half the room just, right away, that we've all experienced back pain. It's not something fun to deal with. It hurts, it's inconvenient, you got to deal with it all the time, but it's very, very, very. Agree with that? Move up to talking. Believe me, it's probably more nerve-wracking for me to be up here, All right. So, lifting causes and MSDs are musculoskeletal disorders. 43% of back musculoskeletal disorders, 30% of shoulder, 22% of elbow, 13% of hand and wrist. And what other ones do you think would be included in that? Neck, absolutely. Maybe knee with your ankle, but neck is the big one we're looking for. Has anyone ever heard of Eaton Corporation in South Milwaukee? Used to be the old Cooper Power. So my mom worked there for 35 years. She retired last year on her 35th anniversary. And while she was there, when obviously I was a lot younger, wasn't into the safety field, she kept having issues with her neck. Some of the lifting she was doing, because she was going way over her head, she was having to turn awkwardly, ended up having 2 bulging discs in her neck, had a major neck surgery because of this improper lifting. So just because maybe we're in the office and, we're not the fire department or DPW and we're out there lifting these heavy things commonly, don't think that it can't happen to you. because it can, and it was a very, very severe injury. She still has trouble turning her neck to this day. Had to wear the nice looking neck brace for a couple months. So just because we're in the office, don't think that these little things can't happen to you, because they truly can. And we'll talk about some examples as I go through today's training. So over the last 5 years for the city of Oak Creek, lifting caused, which one do you think it is? So you think it's 3,586 over the last 5 years? Any other guesses where you stand? The middle? Number one, lifting is your number one cause of injury within the city of Oak Creek. So this is over the last 5 years. So over the last 5 years, the city has spent over $250,000 due to lifting injuries and workers' comp cost. How does this affect you? Are you paying this out of pocket? Am I paying this out of pocket? Absolutely not, because I would not have this job if obviously I was doing something like that, right? But how does this affect you? So you have these injuries, which I should ask first of all, what do you think? Is that a lot of money? That's quite a bit of money, right? So I have the city of Racine as one of my members. They're up over $1 million the last 5 years. So I mean, in comparison to that, they're obviously a lot bigger municipality, but this is still a pretty good chunk of change that's being spent. So how does this affect you? So it's not coming out of your pocket, right? Not coming out of my pocket. I don't get paid depending on how you perform. Obviously, I don't want people to get injured, so I want to see these reduced. But the higher and more injuries you have, higher cost claims you have, this affects your experience modification. And the fancy word for it. So this determines your premiums and what you guys pay in workers' comp insurance. So the more costly injuries you have, the more time away from work you have, the higher this experience modification goes. Higher it goes, the more money you give to the insurance company. So where does that money come from? Got to come from somewhere, right? So is it coming from budgets, things of that nature? Absolutely. So the more injuries, the more time away from work, the more things are costing, raises that, so it's got to come out of your budget somewhere, so all the fun toys you probably can't get. So the more we reduce these injuries, reduce time away from work, cost, number one, just no one wants to get hurt, right? We want to reduce these things, and you can get that returned to you. So that's why something as elementary as lifting properly is such a big deal. So you can tell over the last 5 years it's cost the city a lot of money. And I blocked out the departments. I can get specific into departments, but I know people are sensitive in today's world, so I didn't want to make anyone feel bad by saying, hey, you cost this much, things like that. But if you're interested, let me know. I could discuss it further with you. So your back, the back is composed of small bones called vertebrae. Between the vertebrae are fibrous discs that provide padding, kind of act like shock absorbers, and nerves run down the center of the vertebrae, and muscles hold it all together. I didn't take anatomy in high school, so it's just kind of very basic kind of understanding of your back here. So what are your basic functions of the back? Provide support to protect the spine, and then provide flexibility to allow bending and rotating are your basic functions. So what's not listed on there? Lifting, right? So it's not designed and made for lifting. So your back, kind of breaking it down into sections here. The biggest one are your cervical curve, supports your neck and skull. The thoracic curve supports your ribs. The lumbar curve carries the majority of your body's weight. That's the one that we hear about all the time, right? Lumbar support, lumbar curve. So it's carrying most of your body's weight. What makes it extremely prone to injury because it's carrying most of your weight. So most of the time we think, do we have lower back pain? Is more common than upper back pain? Yeah, there we go. Yes, it's obviously a lot more common because it's more prone to injury. So that's why we see it having more lower back pain than like upper or middle, which can obviously happen. So the muscles that are not made for lifting, obviously your spinal muscles, right? But the ones that are made for stomach, buttocks, and your thighs. So we all hear lift with your legs, not your back. We all know that, right? But that's why they're there. They're really there to help you and aid you in lifting. So the force is actually involved. So let's say you're lifting a 10-pound object, and you look at your waist as kind of your fulcrum point. Let's imagine like a teeter-totter or something like that. So if I have a teeter-totter and I have the fulcrum point in the middle, 10-pound object over here, 10 pounds over here. Takes 10 pounds of force to lift that 10-pound object, right? But if you shift that fulcrum point to there where you're not lifting properly, it actually puts 1,150 pounds of pressure on your lower back. So there is a lot of forces involved. So people can get a very significant injury by picking up, I don't know, pencil, piece of paper, something like that, because you're actually putting so much force on your lower back. So does this surprise anyone? I like the facial expression. I appreciate it. But yes, it really puts a lot of force on your lower back. So that's why even something as a 10-pound object rather than a 100-pound object, you still got to do things properly because you can expose your back to possible injury. So when you're lifting properly, things you just want to think about at a time is obviously the route. So is it an extremely far distance? Do you have to go up and down stairs? Are you going to be able to carry it the whole way? Are we going outside in the middle of winter when it's slippery? A lot of different things you want to think about. Final placement, heights, so that you have your kind of safe zone from your lifting is about your shoulders to about your waist. Kind of your safe zone where you want to make lifts, so we're not putting things here. We're not just bending down to put things down there. You want to remain within that safe zone. Do you need a step ladder, partner, whatever it may be? So, 3 main parts when it comes to conducting a proper lift. Lifting the load, carrying the load, and setting down the load. Very, very simple. Okay? So now we are going to do an activity. So I need a volunteer. So we are going to lift. While that person is lifting, everyone is going to evaluate them. So I kind of gave you that sheet to kind of look at. And then we're going to kind of analyze it together on what actually happened. So do I have a volunteer? I am not above calling on people. There we go. Perfect. There we go. Woo! What's your name? Joanne. Joanne, thank you very much for helping me out. So all I'm going to ask you to do, go pick up my backpack, and then bring it and set it on the other side of the room and set it down. That's all. So everyone's watching. Okay, go ahead. All the way to the other side. Right back to the office, right? Thank you very much. How about a round of applause? There we go. There we go. There we go. All right. So what do we notice? The backpack moved, absolutely. We'll kind of go through your sheet. What was good about it? Does anyone have that packet? All the extras? Thank you. So, did she face the load? Yeah. Did she avoid twisting? Okay. Did she keep her back straight, knees bent? Picked it up? Yeah. Did she test the load? Kind of a big one, right? So my brother worked at UPS for, I don't even know, probably not very long. But he used to say some of those boxes were very misleading. You get a big box, pounds, you get a small one, that would be 50. So that is an important thing to think about. I mean, if it's giving it a little kick to test it or just kind of moving with your hands, just test it to see truly how heavy it is. Now looking at the backpack, it's probably not that bad, but I could have, loaded it down with weights or, something to make it extremely heavy, but obviously I would never do that. But just an important thing to remember, test the load, see how heavy it is. Did she ensure a good grip? Let's say so. Lift with both hands, lift with the legs, and lift slowly. What? One hand on the one. Because there was a hand, all right. So that's kind of debatable. I was actually gonna tell you before to lift with 2 and pick it up, but that was kind of my fault. But lifting with 1, but it was designed for that purpose, right? She didn't lift it. Hand, right? She had the handle, so obviously that would be okay. What about carrying it? Did she keep her back straight or slightly arched? Walk slowly, keep the load close to her body. Yeah, it was on the side with the handle, but it was close. She wasn't holding it out like this, right? So if you imagine you have a 10-pound object and I'm holding it like this, probably lasts a lot longer than bring it close to your body. She turned with her feet, obviously did not walk with an obstructed view. And what about setting it? She avoid twisting? Avoid reaching forward? She positioned herself. So overall, what would you say? Very good job, right? B plus, I heard. Round it up to an A. Come on. So with that being said, is it easy to lift properly, as we saw? Absolutely. So we're going to get there in 1 second before I jump ahead. So the common mistakes we see: twisting and lifting at the same time is a pretty big factor. Lifting while reaching or stretching. So I'm reaching out and grabbing something over here is a big factor. Lifting from awkward posture, so not positioning your body the right way. Fighting to recover a drop load. If you're going to drop something, just drop it. We see a lot of people actually get injured just trying to fight to recover that. Lifting a load that is too awkward or too heavy. It's not the grocery store. We don't have to make it in one trip using all the bags. Take 2 trips, something like that. And then overall, lifting improperly, even for a small object, we're going down, bending with our backs, right? So that's actually a reason I don't do it and I don't volunteer, because I struggle with keeping my back straight. Because all the years I did weightlifting and squatting, I have a very awkward posture. So that's why my boss told me he's going to test me every year and determine if I get a raise or not until I lift properly. So I'm not there yet, so that's why I don't do it. So what are all some alternatives? Can't do it ourselves. What can we use? What can we do? Hire someone. Call Joanne to do it. What else? Get a partner. Give me 3 more, then we can move on. Find a dolly. Lessen the load, so maybe taking 2 trips. 1 more. Sure, use a crane if you really need that big of an object. So you get most of them, but pushing the object is a little easier. Pulling that object. Forklift was another one. Push carts, dollies we talked about. Partner lifts, 2 trips, and any others. Sure, we can get a crane in here if we need be. But with that being said, so we know how to lift properly. Joanne just showed us that. We know the alternatives. What can we use if we can't lift properly? Why don't we do it? Lazy. In a hurry. Don't want to bother another person. Underestimate our own strength. Okay, a lot of good reasons, right? So as you can see, it's an issue. Over $250,000 in 5 years, quite a bit of money. So what can we do to fix it? Education. So why you guys get to see my smiling face here today. What else? This is really on you guys. I can't sit up here and say, okay, this is what you got to do, this is what you got to do, because we all know this stuff already. And obviously it's still an issue. So regardless, for me, I'm not going to come hound you and, you didn't lift that right, and come yell at you. It's really up to you. Really up to everyone in this room what you want to do. What else can we do? Use the checklist. Sure, absolutely. Take the time. Take your time. Yes, we're all in a rush. I get it. I guarantee any municipality I go to, I have 14 members in Wisconsin, we're all going to say we're too busy. So it's not just you. Take your time. Do it properly. Get the right piece of equipment. Use an alternative. Ask a partner. Don't be afraid to ask. A lot of different things. And it's really going to depend on everyone in this room what you really want to do. Like I said, I can't change the world by doing this PowerPoint. It's really going to depend on you. And I just wanted to show you, you know this information. It's just take the time to think about it. Do it correctly. That's all it really is. So are there any questions so far? Comments, concerns? Matt, this training is boring. If that's the case, just keep it to yourself, okay? Say it after I leave. But just quickly on maintaining a healthy back. How am I doing on time here for my hour slot? Doing all right. So when you are standing, try not to slouch. Use a mat if you're standing for long periods of time, which I understand is difficult in some situations, or if you have a sit-stand desk, try not to stand on that hard floor. When I was in Whitewater, I worked at a place called Lavelle Industries, made toilet parts. It's exciting stuff, I know. But I would have to stand in the same spot for 8 hours with two 10-minute breaks. A good job while I was in school, but we had those ergonomic mats there that really kind of takes a lot of that tension, a lot of the pressure off. So if you're standing in the same spot for a long time, they're pretty inexpensive. So something to consider to save your back. If you're sitting, don't try not to slouch. I know I'm the culprit of that too. But the big one here is get up frequently. So how often do you think you should get up? Uncomfortable or once every hour. So it could be more than that. If it's getting a drink of water, if it's going to the farther printer, if it's, God forbid, going to talk someone face to face instead of sending an email. Little things like that, get up and just stretch a little bit. It's really going to truly make a difference. So about every hour, if possible. And if you're standing, try to take a break every once in a while. So trying to find a nice, happy medium will be very beneficial. Exercising and stretching. Exercise regularly, obviously being in better physical condition is going to reduce your risk of back injury, and stretching. So this may or may not apply to you in this room, but I'm going to play in my volleyball league on Thursday night. Am I going to stretch before? Yeah, I better, and yes I do. If anyone here goes to pick up football or soccer or baseball game, are you going to likely stretch before? Go for a jog, are you going to stretch before? Yeah. If we're doing this strenuous things at work, how come we're not stretching before? I know don't have the time, I don't want to be the only one doing it, but I will tell you it does make a difference. The city of Green Bay implemented a stretching program, and you have seen their injuries reduce significantly just by stretching every day. So, if I go home after this and go back to work, am I going to stretch before I sit on my couch and work on my laptop? No, probably not, right? If I'm going to go lift something or do something kind of strenuous, am I probably going to take the time at least a little bit to warm up? You should, and it truly makes a difference, but that's going to be your call. I'm not going to come yell at you and say, hey, did you stretch today? No, I didn't see ya. No. It's really up to you to truly make that difference. So lastly, just have a quick video here to kind of put it all into perspective and kind of review.
Most back pain is caused by an injury. The most common injuries are back strains from lifting or twisting or bending while lifting. Using your head before lifting anything can help make sure you do not live the rest of your life in pain. Make sure you have a good idea of how heavy the object is you are going to lift. Do not try to lift objects that are awkward or are heavier than 30 to 40 pounds. Reaching overhead puts tremendous strain on your back and shoulders. Use a step stool or ladder to raise yourself up to the level of what you are reaching. To pick up an object that is lower than the level of your waist, don't bend forward at the waist with your knees straight. Remember the hinge in your back that we talk about in another video. Keep your spine as straight as possible and bend at your knees and hips. Stand with a wide stance close to the object you are trying to pick up and keep your feet firm on the ground. Tighten your stomach muscles and use your leg muscles to lift the object. Straighten your knees in a steady motion. Smooth, steady movements. Never lift something by jerking it up. Never lift and twist at the same time. Stand completely upright without twisting. Then move your feet. Don't twist your body. Hold items close to your body with your arms bent. Keep your elbows in tight to your sides. Hug the load. Unstable lifting stresses your back. Using two hands to lift keeps your body stable. Make sure you can see the top of what you are trying to lift. Any unseen object can slide off and strike your head and face. Use your head, remember a few safety rules before lifting, and save your back. Thanks for watching and have a safe day.
Alright, so I probably could have showed you that video at the beginning and we could have called it a day. It really just went over everything I just talked about, but as you could tell, it goes a little bit deeper than that, right? Because we all know these things, okay? Lift with your knees, don't lift with your back, but it's really going to depend on everyone in here for you guys to change that. So if it is taking your time or asking someone for help or using a dolly, That's really all it takes. So little things we do today can really change the outcome of tomorrow. So don't think it can't happen to you because we're working in the office. Believe me, in this next training I'll talk about some more instances where I've seen it happen. So are there any questions for me? All right, so we will just keep chugging along then. Just give me 1 second. All right, so now to the non-stop thrill ride of slips, trips, and falls. So again, obviously very informal, but this is probably going to seem even a little bit more elementary, but again, we'll talk about the reasons why it's such a big issue. So our learning objectives for today, we are going to talk about some accident statistics, talk about the definitions, causes, and the types of falls that we're seeing, talk a little bit about, or a lot about injury prevention, and then lastly, I'm just going to have you take look at some pictures, and you're going to tell me what's wrong with them. Any questions? You don't need me to do the intro again about who I am and stuff, right? Okay. So, starting out with a similar video like we did last time, it'll be a couple minutes, and then we're going to discuss it after.
In this short video, we will show you something most people don't realize about what causes us to trip and fall and how to avoid this dangerous hazard. Slips, trips, and falls constitute the majority of general industry accidents and result in back injuries, strains and sprains, contusions, and fractures. A trip happens when your foot or lower leg hits an object and stops, but your upper body continues moving, resulting in loss of balance. But first, let's understand one very important thing that we all have in common. Can you tell what it is? When a person takes a step, their foot comes off the ground about half an inch before it steps back down again. Therefore, anything that sticks up a half inch or more can cause you to trip, and then your momentum can cause you to fall. If you're lucky, you'll walk away with a few bumps and bruises, but for the not so lucky, falls result in 15% of all accidental deaths and are second only to motor vehicles as a cause of fatalities. What did you trip over the last time you fell? People tend to trip over things that we see all the time but don't normally notice. Things like a slightly curled up edge of a carpet or mat, extension cords, uneven walking surfaces like cracks in sidewalks or other walking surfaces, thresholds in doorways, tools, even those cute little pets snoozing in doorways cause hundreds of falls every day. Can you spot the trip hazards in this photo? Here's one where the surface changes elevation about an inch, and another change in elevation. Would you see this one? And two more changes in elevation, each more than half an inch. Anywhere you see a crack in a walking surface lurks a potential trip hazard. This is a joint in the sidewalk. Hard to see, but the difference here is almost 3/4 of an inch, more than enough to cause a fall. But can you see the other hazard? Here, almost invisible, but the crack should be enough to warn you. The elevation here changes only slightly, but enough to cause a hazard. We can get so used to hazards we forget they're there. This one was painted yellow, but it's been scuffed over so many times it's getting harder to see. A common type of hazard is any area where one type of walking surface ends and another begins, like where carpeting meets tile, or the edge of a parking lot. Sharp, unexpected changes in elevation are particularly dangerous. This one's much bigger than half an inch. A warning could save a terrible injury or even a life, maybe your own. A simple door threshold sticks up enough to trip anyone walking in or out. Hazards hide in plain sight, especially if the lighting is bad or if we are doing something that blocks our vision. Pay attention. If you're walking and texting, reading, daydreaming, or doing anything other than not paying attention to where your feet are going, you might as well be walking blindfolded because your eyes are not working for you, they're distracted. You can avoid injury because tripping and falling is preventable. Keep in mind that it's the little things we don't normally look for that can hurt us the most. As you're walking today, how many trip hazards can you spot? At work, at home, in the parking lot, or wherever you go. Remember, it only takes half an inch to change your day for the worse. Use your eyes and be aware of those little trip hazards as you walk.
Alright, so it's not safety training unless I throw a couple cheesy videos in there, right? I promise you I have some better ones. And you feel bad, I did this training 6 different times last week. Yeah. But in all honesty, yes, I get it, it's a cheesy video, but it's a really good video. Is it information correct? To your knowledge? Absolutely. So how many different slip, trip, and fall hazards do we encounter on a daily basis? Quite a bit, but we're not really thinking about it. The little things like doorways, even from carpeting going to the tile here, those little cute little pets in the doorways, cords, whatever it may be. We're experiencing things quite often on a daily basis. So I just kind of wanted to get you thinking about that. So with that being said, slip, trip, and fall incidents account for about 15% of all accidental deaths in the workplace. So that's only second to motor vehicle accidents. So it's a pretty big percentage of all deaths in the workplace. Slip, trips, and falls on the same levels are a second leading cause of injury, and there's about 25,000 slip, trip, and fall incidents that occur daily in the United States. So it's very, very, very common. Who here has experienced a slip, trip, and fall? Just see probably everyone's hand go up because we've all probably done it once in our lifetime. It seems to always happen on a very inopportune moment where everyone's watching you and you just get embarrassed. That's why I put this chair here to cover that kind of cord for myself. How embarrassing would that be if I just fell right in front of everyone I'm talking about it? The one example that comes to mind, I went to school at UW Whitewater, and I was walking to class, and there was an incoming group of freshmen that were touring the university. I'm walking, I'm this big bad senior. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool, and suddenly, whoop, down right in front of the whole entire tour group. I get up, and they're all kind of laughing at me, and turned away, bright red, embarrassed. Ran as fast as I could, but it happens, right, quite a bit. And minimally, maybe you're just embarrassed. Maybe I sprain my ankle. Maybe I fall down and can't get up for a little bit. But the more of these things happen, in the safety world, we say frequency leads to severity. So the more they happen, it might be something minimal. Eventually, it's going to be severe. And it might be a torn, ACL, MCL. It might be a broken leg. And we've seen these things happen. And for something like that, does that cost quite a bit of money? Yeah. So even if we don't get hurt, it's still looking towards that frequency. So it's very, very common. So as you guys kind of saw on the last chart here, it's your number 3 cause of injury at just over $200,000. But again, is that a lot of money? That is a ton of money, right? We're almost looking at $500,000 just for slip, trips, and falls and lifting alone. So it's a very, very serious thing. And again, it seems kind of elementary and silly that we have to go over this thing, but slip, trip, and fall is the leading cause of injury for CVMIC. Our 48 members, it's number 1 and number 2 usually for slip, trips, and falls and lifting, but slip, trips, and falls usually takes it by number 1. So it's a very, very, very serious issue. So again, I kind of blocked out the departments, but if you're looking for more information, you can let me know there. So looking at some definitions, a slip occurs when there's little or not enough friction between your foot and your walking surface. A trip occurs when your foot or lower part of your leg hits something, your upper body keeps moving forward, and then a misstep is when you step down unexpectedly to a lower level. So has anyone ever done that one on stairs when you're kind of walking and suddenly just like that? Yeah, I saw a picture the other day, and it was someone painted the floor the same as the last step. So they couldn't tell the difference, and they captioned it like pure evil or something like that. But all these things can lead to a fall. Obviously, right? When your center of gravity is too far off balance and you fall down to the ground. So That being said, can you cause injury even if you don't fall? Absolutely, but we usually see the more severe ones when actually a fall occurs. But you can still cause injury even if a fall doesn't occur. Our common causes we see are wet or oily surfaces, occasional spills. Weather is probably the biggest one. In the wintertime, these things skyrocket. It's pretty unbelievable. Um, but loose on-naked rugs or mats, anyone ever done that one? You stepped on a rug and had it slip out from under you? Absolutely. Flooring or other just walking surfaces. Trips, obstructed view. One of the big ones I've seen, it was in the library, had someone carrying something, obstructed view, didn't see the stairs. Went out about 6 months ago. Very, very severe injury. Still out of work today. So it is a concern again. So not just DPW, police, or fire. It's everyone that is truly affected by this. So it was one of the worst ones I've seen, and it was a librarian. So be aware of that. Poor lighting, clutter, wrinkled carpeting, uncovered cables is another big one. Where I never want to be the "I told you so" guy, because if I am, that means someone got hurt. One of my municipalities, I did a facility inspection, and they had a cord crossing the main walkway. Told them this is a hazard, and well, we'll fix it. We'll fix it. Of course, they didn't. Guess who got a claim 2 weeks later? On that exact cord, someone fell. So just because you think, oh, this is not going to happen to me, think about other people in the building that might not be familiar with it as well. So things do happen. Open drawers, that was another big one. Anyone take a file cabinet to the shin? Doesn't feel good. I promise you that. And then just uneven walking surface. Is there anything else you would want to add to that? This is the part where you converse with me. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one. I can't say I've seen that one, but is it possible? Absolutely. Especially on the carpet or something like that. Absolutely. Definitely a possibility. Thank you. So these can lead to 3 types of falls. So falls to the same level, slip or trip goes to the same level, falls to a lower level if you're on a ladder, equipment, whatever it may be. And then lastly, jumps to a lower level, which is an intentional jump, which is a common one I see all the time. Someone just jumping from a piece of equipment or off like a last step and twisting an ankle. We'll talk kind of about mounting and dismounting equipment, but these are the 3 ones that we're mainly seeing. So are there any questions? No one's sleeping, so I'll take that as I'm doing all right. So we're going to talk a little bit about prevention. So we'll talk about housekeeping, surfaces, proper footwear, work practices, inclement weather, which I will ask for another volunteer, but I won't force someone to do this one. And then lastly, mounting and dismounting equipment. So we're just going to get a little specific into the things that each of us can do kind of every day here. So when it comes to housekeeping, cleaning up your spills immediately and marking those wet areas. So we see those caution wet, caution slippery, literally everywhere now. So make sure you're putting those up, and if you spill, just clean it up. It takes 5 minutes to clean up, or if you notice someone walked away from one, do it yourself. It's truly not a big difference, like 5 minutes maybe, but can it prevent something major from happening? Yes, absolutely. Mop or sweep up debris, remove obstacles from walkways. Excuse me. Keep walkways free of clutter, and then just make sure those mats are secured, so we're not stepping on them and slipping. Make sure they have like the adhesive underneath them, so you're not moving all around. Close file cabinets and drawers. Cover cords that cross walkways. Now, if you have temporary wiring and it's going to be there for 10, 15 minutes, do you have to go get a cord cover? No, probably not. Going to be there for a longer time. Could you put a cone or something on it just to inform people that, hey, this is here? Yeah, little things like that. Those cord covers are fantastic if it's more of a permanent wiring situation. Some people say that's an additional hazard that you could trip on, but it's less likely than grabbing a cord kind of around your ankle. So those are a fantastic thing. And then just make sure to keeping working areas well lit so you can see what's happening. When it comes to walking surfaces, you can recoat or replace floors Obviously, probably not in your scope of employment, but could be a suggestion. Installing mats is a big one, especially in and out of doorways. So thinking about that, where do you want them? Pressure-sensitive abrasive strips are fantastic for anything that's on an incline. Those help with traction. And then lastly, yellow safety paint. So we see a lot of this in like parking lots, right? So you have kind of the lanes of where you're supposed to park, correct? You ever see them on the curbs? It's not really designed to tell you how far you should go. It's designed to show you the change in elevation. So something as simple as yellow safety paint, there's no specific color. Just think of the sun is kind of where you want to shoot for. A very quick and easy fix because it's just going to jump out at anyone walking by that, hey, this hazard's here and it's in plain sight. So something pretty easily that, we could fix like little small hazards. Proper footwear, another one. Floors that are slippery, considerable time outdoors and ice. So the biggest thing I will talk about is slip-resistant shoes. So if you are required to wear safety toe, steel toe, something like that, you're going to have a little tag on the inside tongue of your shoe. It's going to say ASTM, and it's going to give you a rating on what it's actually designed for. So if it's puncture resistant, electrically non-conductive, whatever it may be. But you can see the ones that will have like an SL, means slip resistance. These things work fantastic. Does anyone ever heard of Buca di Beppo's Italian restaurant? So no longer in Wisconsin. But I used to work at the one on Van Buren, downtown Milwaukee. And before my safety days, we were required to wear slip-resistant shoes, and I didn't argue. Wore them all the time. Didn't really notice anything until one day I forgot them. So I wore my black Nike Shocks, and I couldn't tell you how many times I almost fell that day. I was slipping and sliding all over the place. You can imagine all the grease and, bless you, all the water and things like that on the floor. I was sliding all over the place. I think my boss made me go home to get them. But it was a big difference, night and day. And I swear by them that slip-resistant shoes will make a huge difference if you're spending, considerable time outdoors. Maybe you're in inspection or whatever it may be, but it does make a difference. Ice cleats are another thing you can use on the top right there. Our cheaters, for anyone who does ice fishing in here, will make a difference, but beware of ice cleats on regular floors. Kind of creates an additional hazard. Kind of a pain to take on and off, but there's these things called ice tees that are hands-free that you can use that make a big difference. And then lastly, spray. Has anyone ever used that? Me either. I know it's available. Don't know how well it works, but if you ever decide to use it, please send me an email and let me know so I have something to talk about next time I do this training. But never met anyone that's ever used it. What do you think? Could this guy have used them? See, I told you I had some better videos, right? A couple better ones to come. So what can you do at work? The first thing is take your time and pay attention. Again, I talked about we're all in a rush, but really everyone has a lot to do. So you're not the only one, I promise. But adjust your stride to the task. Make wide turns at corners. Has anyone ever done that one? Gone around a corner and right into someone? Or you get where you don't know which way to go, and it's kind of that awkward second. You're trying to figure it out. Yeah, do the dance, exactly. Ensure there is sufficient lighting. No texting. I'm not going to say I'm perfect and say I never text and walk because I do. Has anyone ever seen those videos of people walking into poles and stuff like that? It's pretty interesting. I was told last week that it's actually illegal in New York. I have not researched it. I'm not sure. But I guess you can't text and walk in New York. I don't know. And then the big one here is do not walk with an obstructed view. So if that goes into taking 2 trips, or using a partner lift, or even if you have to do it, maybe walk backwards and turn your head that way. Kind of use it like you'd do like a forklift, but big one, make sure you can see where you're going. If possible, fix it yourself, but if not, at least alert others in the area, tell your supervisor, do your due diligence, let someone know that this is going on. If they don't fix it and you have no power to fix it, at least you did what you could. All right, so little things like that. So do I have a volunteer? All right, I guess I'll do this one. That's why I get paid the big bucks, right? Or do you want to volunteer for me again? Absolutely. All right, fantastic. So inclement weather. Make sure to slow down. Wear that proper footwear. Wear sunglasses to make things more visible to yourself. Treat walking surfaces. Obviously, it's kind of no-brainer, but treat the ones that are well traveled probably first, then other ones. Beware wet shoes on slippery floors, and walk like a penguin. So whenever you're ready, walk like a penguin. Don't worry, we're recording this too. Say hi. There you go. A little bit longer. Come on, you can do it. You volunteered. There we go. Perfect. All right. Yes, that's all I needed you to do. Thank you for volunteering. All right, with that being said, thank you again for volunteering. I've had 2 people, or that's my third actually, ever volunteer for that ever. So it's usually myself doing it, so thank you for taking that away from me. I did not want to do it again. I'm not saying walk around the whole city of Oak Creek like that. People are probably going to call and say, what's wrong with this employee? I'm a little concerned. But think about it. Do we all kind of do that naturally? If there's ice on the ground or a slippery condition? So we're all kind of walking flat-footed. Our feet are kind of pointed outward a little bit. Yeah. So it's just something to consider where if you're in a situation where it's, hey, likely to be slippery or icy, walk like a penguin. So feet flat, little kind of baby steps. It just makes yourself a little bit more stable. So just something to consider. So I think we all do it anyway. So I think this mascot could have used it.
I wore the wrong socks.
Scene 1, take 4.
I wore the wrong socks. Have you tried the hot dogs here?
He's like, So you get to go home for the rest of the day.
He's not going to be much use to us, I don't think.
Needless to say, I didn't get my deposit back. Needless to say, I didn't get my deposit back. And Viper Mitsubishi is a proud sponsor of Golden Goat for Hockey.
Are you okay? Because that's your nose broke as well. So if you're ever having a bad day, you could watch that video. I've probably seen it 100 times. It still kind of makes me chuckle. So one of the last things I'll talk about before we get into pictures is mounting and dismounting equipment. So very simply, maintain 3 points of contact at all times. So if it's 2 hands and 1 foot or 2 feet and 1 hand, it doesn't matter if you're getting off a bigger piece of equipment, SUV, a regular, just sedan. These things can really make a difference. Make sure you always face that piece of equipment and don't jump off. I've seen a lot of injuries. Really, I mean, just getting in and out of SUV and slipping on some ice and not being able to hold on, facing the vehicle the wrong way, or jumping out and slipping or rolling an ankle. So just little things like this can truly make a difference. Are there any questions so far? We kind of get into our last part here. So what's wrong with this one? He's doing good, hey? Thinking safety first, so obviously pretty common sense of what's going on here. I truly saw something very similar to this, where I was in Racine, one of my members, I was coming back from lunch, and I saw a guy with 1 foot up on the top of the truck, the other foot on the top of the bridge railing with like a 40-foot drop underneath him, 30-foot drop. I wish I could have stopped to take a picture. Obviously, I wasn't going to do that, but I couldn't believe it. So obviously, common sense here, if anything. What about this one? So very easily just a worn surface. So if that's painting it safety yellow, putting a cone over it or something, either fixing it yourself if possible. But again, just to think about those worn surfaces, depending on where you are, might really make a difference. No, that's not a snake. Extension cords, wiring across major walkways. You have to have it there. Please put a cord cover over it. I really don't hope I do this training 2 weeks from now and say I was in Oak Creek and I'm the I told you so guy. So make sure they're covered. Make sure they're not an additional trip hazard. They went halfway. They put up the sign. I'll give them that. But again, clean up the spill yourself. It really doesn't take much time. Or if you see one, take the 5 minutes, clean it up. It really can make a difference. Wrinkled carpeting. I've done this multiple times at my office. How long would it take for me to go kick it? Not very long. Couple seconds. That's it. Getting a new rug if you can't fix that, depending on the hazard, tape it down. Absolutely. Absolutely. Out here. Probably like 3 different ones, 3, 4 different ones on this one. So obviously we're not gonna, no one here is gonna go fix that sidewalk outside, right? Just other look at worn surfaces. It only takes a half an inch to truly change your day for the worse. So it doesn't take much, so just something to consider. Keeping areas free of clutter. Of course, they have the cinder block right by the stairs. That's a big accident waiting to happen. So keep things free of clutter, walkways clear. What about this one? Someone's holding the bucket at least, right? So I'm curious to how this person got down. I am not sure. But again, kind of going back to the common sensing, I could spend a whole nother half hour on ladder safety if I truly wanted to, but using the right ladder for the job, keeping your center of gravity between the running lines, things like that. Forklifts probably doesn't apply too much here, but if you're ever operating a forklift, they have to be tilted down, touching the ground. If they're in a walkway, put a cone on there. Trailer hitches, same thing, put a cone on them. No, those aren't fun to get hit in the shin either. And lastly, just have a quick video to wrap things up. I found this a while ago, and this girl likes to fall over in public on purpose, so I kind of got a kick out of it, so we'll see if you enjoy it or not.
Oh my god. Wow. Hey.
Paige.
Yeah, I have no idea. I guess this is a new trend that people do. I was informed last week too that they like to fall over in public and take videos. I guess that's better than eating like Tide Pods or something like that. But no idea. But in all seriousness, I know this sounds very elementary, and we all know these things. But fixing things yourselves or taking the time to improve hazards that may exist or may exist in the future can really make a big difference. So that's all I have for you. Are there any questions? All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your time and attention. I appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Take care. Enjoy the weather.